There have been a ton of reports that a second generation iPhone Air may be delayed, or even cancelled entirely due to low sales. Sounds familiar? Well, that's exactly what happened with the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge, which underperformed significantly, selling only about 1.3 million units, while the entire S25 lineup surpassed 22.7 million units. And this ultimately led to Samsung reportedly cancelling the upcoming S26 Edge. Essentially, the S25 Edge accounted for just around 5 to 6% of the lineup's total sales. The iPhone Air, on the other hand, only accounted for around 3% of the iPhone 17 lineup sales. So does this mean that the Air 2 will get cancelled as well? Well, maybe not, as according to Mark Gurman, the second generation iPhone Air was never intended for a 2026 release. Reason why it was never called the iPhone 17 Air, so that it wouldn't be tied to an annual release schedule. So what's going to happen with the second generation Air then? Well, here's everything we know so far, so get a popcorn ready and enjoy. So I quite enjoyed using the first generation Air. If you haven't seen my full review, you can watch it here, but long story short, I loved the feel of it. And it reminded me of the iPhone X in the sense that I could see and feel Apple's innovation once again. I also really liked the screen size and the quality of that display. For me, 6.5 inches seems to be the sweet spot for everyday use. Big enough to enjoy content, but not so big that it feels uncomfortable like the Pro Max often does. However, there were several things about the Air that I wasn't a fan of. The most noticeable one was the battery. It performed a bit better than I expected, but it still wasn't great, lasting me for only about half a day with medium to heavy use, which meant that I had to use the MagSafe battery, which kinda defeated the whole purpose of having a thin Air in the first place. Aside from the battery, the lack of a telephoto camera was also tough, and missing features like ProRAW, ProRes, or even USB 3.0 transfer speeds felt like a real downgrade when I wanted to do some B-roll for my videos when traveling. And there were some smaller issues as well. They weren't deal breakers, but I'm hoping Apple addresses them in the next generation. And those were the single speaker, the lowered position dynamic island, which made the top icons feel a bit weird. Also the C1X modem, which didn't deliver the best mobile coverage for me at least. So is the second generation Air going to improve in any of these aspects? Well, let me start with the battery first. And while we don't have an exact number, Mark Gurman has reported that a bigger battery is in the works. We don't yet know if this would be a silicon carbon battery or just a more energy-dense lithium-ion battery, but if the battery does get an upgrade, I also hope that Apple doesn't forget about updating the MagSafe battery. As fun fact, that one uses the exact same battery as the phone itself. But even so, the current model has a capacity of 3,149 mAh, so I'm hoping for at least 3,700 to 4,000. In other words, I really hope that Apple does increase the battery size by at least 20%, which would roughly translate to a 25 to 30% possible battery gain, as according to Mark Gurman, we will also see more efficient chips that would help improve the battery even further. One of these chips being the rumored C2 chip. Now, the C-series chips are responsible for all cellular connectivity in the newer iPhones, such as the 16e and the iPhone Air, as well as the M5 iPad Pro, and they're designed to improve performance, enhance battery life, and provide much faster AirDrop and just connectivity in general. Apple has already improved the efficiency with the C1X chip, but the rumored C2 chip may improve battery life even further in combination with the larger physical battery and the new A20 chip, which, by the way, is set to be built on TSMC's latest and greatest 2nm node. Now, according to Ming Chi Kuo, the A20 chip in the iPhone 18 will switch from Apple's long-used INFO packaging to TSMC's newer WMCM, or wafer-level multi-chip module, something that I talked about in the previous videos. And with this new technology, the RAM could be integrated directly into the same wafer as the CPU, GPU, and the neural engine, rather than sitting beside them. This should allow for faster performance, snappier Apple Intelligence response times, improved power efficiency, and potentially even more internal space freed up thanks to this. That's especially important for the Air, as its logic board is crammed into this camera plateau, and we all know what more space inside the camera plateau could mean. And that's the addition of a secondary camera. But before that, Daniel from beautiful Bali here. I'm here to attend a Poco launch, and before that, I just want to give a quick shout out to ESR for sponsoring this video and for their awesome Black Friday deals with up to 30% off
until December the 1st. If you've picked up a new phone, make sure to keep it protected with ESR's UltraFit Armorite screen protectors. They're super easy to apply. Just pop them in the tray and pull the tab. The glass is even made by Corning. ESR also has a bunch of cases on offer, like this classic hybrid magnetic case with its stash stand and camera control. The dual-layer stash stand with a zinc alloy camera guard prevents damage from drops and falls for up to 11 feet, while also acting as a kickstand for watching videos or for when you're using standby mode while charging. So check out ESR's Black Friday deals using the links and discounts below.
Now, back to that second camera, Gurman believes that adding a secondary camera to the Air would be a bit strange, as it would mean relocating or miniaturizing a lot of the components, although it would still be technically possible. So, which camera could this be? Well, leaker Digital Chat Station suggests Apple may be adding a secondary 48-megapixel ultra-wide camera, possibly the same one from the iPhone 17. And yeah, that would be a great upgrade, as in that case we would have the same camera setup as on the iPhone 17. Although personally, I am hoping for a telephoto module. For me, that is just way more useful, at least when I'm going to events, as a lot of the times I just cannot physically move closer to the subject. But what do you guys think? If Apple were to add a second camera to the Air, would you prefer an ultra-wide or a telephoto? Let me know down below. What's cool is that, no pun intended, the iPhone Air may also be getting the new Vapour cooling chamber from the iPhone 17 Pro, according to Mark Gurman. This would be one of the most welcome upgrades, honestly, as the Air does throttle quite heavily given its super thin form factor, also the powerful A19 Pro chip, and of course, the titanium frame, which doesn't dissipate heat, as well as aluminium. This combination of factors made the iPhone Air perform on par, or sometimes even worse, than the base iPhone 17, which only had the base A19 chip and not the A19 Pro. So adding a vapor cooling chamber to help pull the heat away from the chip would really help with its performance. I'm just curious to see how and if Apple manages to fit a vapor cooling chamber inside the second-gen iPhone Air, as this is already an extremely thin phone, and that would of course be an extra layer inside the phone. But yeah, all in all, this would be a fantastic upgrade. And speaking of fantastic upgrades, that would be our latest Chrome Currents wallpaper pack by our designer Bold. Just look at how amazing this looks on the iPhone Air, and also on an iPad and on a desktop as well. Same goes for Japan Journal by Lucy. That looks stunning as well if you're into these Japanese aesthetics. All of our wallpapers are 8K in resolution and made by our designers. And we've got no ads in the app either. So you can check out wallpapers for free by using the link below or by searching it in the App Store or the Play Store. So when should we expect to see the second generation Air? Well, according to Mark Gurman, Apple now has a brand new release schedule for the iPhones, with the Pro iPhones and rumored iPhone Fold launching in the fall of 2026, and then the other ones, so the regular iPhone 18, the iPhone 18e, and possibly the second gen Air, these are only set to come in the spring of 2027. And personally, I think that this is actually very plausible. You see, the iPhone Air is a niche, low-volume first-gen product. You could even call it a prototype. And Apple tends to take their time before releasing a follow-up. This helps ensure early adopters don't feel like their investment was instantly outdated. Just take a look at the Apple Vision Pro, for example. Its successor took more than a year and a half to arrive. The same applies to products like the Pro Display XDR and the Studio Display and the Mac Pro. These upgrades take years to arrive. In fact, we haven't even had a Pro Display 2, a Studio Display 2, and a new Mac Pro yet. We're still on the M2 Ultra. So yeah, these aren't devices that get yearly refreshes like the iPad or the MacBook. They're niche, high-end, and low-volume products, and I think the Air kind of falls in the same boat, at least when it comes to how Apple sees this product. It's essentially a showcase product to show what Apple is capable of doing. So all in all, the iPhone Air didn't actually get delayed, nor cancelled because of poor sales. According to Mark Gurman, Apple never intended it to be a big seller, and they were actually aiming for a 6 to 8% share from the iPhone 17 lineup, which, yes, right now it's actually way lower than that, reason why production is set to stop very soon. But yes, apparently the iPhone Air 2 was always supposed to come out in the spring of 2027, alongside the iPhone 18 and the iPhone 18e. And honestly, I'm quite relieved to hear that it is still in the works, as I absolutely loved daily driving this, aside from the battery and the camera. So if the second generation manages to fix both of these, then I'm definitely going to switch over from my Pro Max. That's unless they do actually release that Fold in September, because if they do, I'm probably never switching away from that. But what do you guys think? Will you switch to a second gen Air if it fixes these two main issues of the first gen, the battery and the camera? Or will you still stick to the Pro Max or maybe the iPhone Fold? Let me know down below. And if you want to see more videos on the iPhone Air or any Apple products, then do subscribe to the channel. I'm Daniel, this is Zoneoftech, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Zoneoftech, signing out. Cheers.